No.
You know who didn't say no? Spotify. 100 million yeses. Let's go. This podcast is sponsored by Restream. Why live stream to one platform when you can simultaneously live stream to every platform to discover new audiences faster using Restream.io?
Your daily drop on gaming, live streaming, and social media is: will Joe Rogan fail on Spotify? Andrew Perrin, Andrew Wall, happy Monday. A $100 million plus exclusivity deal is that's a decent offer, right? Like, that's okay.
You know, I've had better. I've turned down, I've turned down 200, 300 mil from Facebook Gaming before. I said no to Zuck. He offered to pay me in Zuck bucks, but seriously, this comes in wake of, and it comes as a part of all of these big influencer celebrity deals that are happening right now. Ninja speculatively with the 50 million deal, Doc with the 10 million deal, Shroud with the 10 million deal. Obviously, Joe Rogan eclipses all of those, and his audience, you could argue, is much larger than any of these other creators we've talked about before. So I'm really curious to dive into the details here. What is it going to mean for him to go exclusive? Because he's the ultimate creator, I guess you could say. He is a real life Chad, basically. So Ross, how do we tackle this topic, amigo?
I think we need to start off by just laying out the facts, just kind of taking a look at what he's doing right now, maybe specifically on his YouTube channel, where he has two separate pages. Maybe he even has a third, but I know he's got one that's just clips that when he does go exclusive with Spotify at the beginning of September, I believe, the clips page will actually stay on YouTube. But you made a good point earlier when we were talking about this. You actually think that just because he's got that clips page doesn't mean, like, it still could be like a time release thing. So you're not getting the content that's, necessarily fresh from his podcast.
Yeah, just to give everybody a little bit of a premise here, Joe Rogan releases content for most podcasting platforms, and he also has two very successful YouTube channels that Perrin's showing on the screen right now. Obviously, Powerful JRE with 9 million subscribers. Each episode is rocking like 1 million to 5 million views a pop, and these are 2 to 3 hour pieces of content. And he's also got a clips channel separate from that, where he uploads individual clips from each episode, and each one of those clips can get hundreds of thousands to millions of views each. So his YouTube strategy is a huge reason why he's so big. And so obviously he is not going to be able to release episodes on his main YouTube channel, getting those millions of views a pop, which is a huge loss in my opinion. And if he is able to do his clips channel, what Ross is referring to is, I think there may be a time exclusive window before those clips can go out there. Similar to how Twitch streamers, you guys would be familiar with that. If you go live on Twitch, you can't upload any of the content that was on Twitch for at least 24 hours a lot of the time. If you're in a partnership agreement, they may negotiate more time gating than that. And so a lot of what Joe Rogan talks with his guests about is timely. And if he's unable to get his content 24, 48, 72 hours after that out on the internet, his relevance will tank, in my opinion. But I suppose we can dive more into that. But, providing exclusivity to Spotify is just so problematic, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah? Why is that exactly? Is it because Spotify, and I'm being legitimately honest asking, is it because Spotify is just like their brand kind of new to the podcasting game, or is it because of some other reason with the platform, or is it just because it's not YouTube?
Well, I mean, the reason why
all are reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really skeptical because Joe Rogan, between his main podcast, so, we were looking up some articles, and Perrin has one here on the screen, speculating about how much money he's worth, for his podcast is worth, and people speculate that this multi-year deal, Perrin, can you run through the numbers here just so everybody can understand how much money is on the line here?
Yeah, I mean, this is, I don't know if this is confirmed. I mean, this is believed that he's making a deal worth about 100 million, according to the Wall Street Journal. So that's $100 million. That's a lot of money. And to put it into perspective, I think at the end of the article, so at the end of this article, they have a section here where it says you would need to generate 23 billion streams on Spotify to earn what they're paying Joe Rogan for his podcast, right? So he's getting more money than like pretty much every musician could ever hope to get on the platform. Very clearly, Spotify is like, we want podcasts. So we're going to go all in on the best, biggest one with the most money, even more than our music vertical. That speaks volumes in terms of what their strategy is and how they want to dominate the market with podcasts.
I agree. So the reason why I wanted to bring that up and why this is problematic, why would they offer a man over $100 million to exclusively bring his show to their platform? And it's because his numbers are huge. So how did Joe Rogan get huge numbers on his show? Millions of downloads, listens, and et cetera per episode. You could argue maybe 10 million or more. We don't know exactly how many audio downloads he gets. And people speculate that he makes about $75,000, maybe $100,000 per episode. And he makes about 200 episodes per year. Just in sponsorships, he makes about 100K, 75K per episode. So this means that his influence is unbelievably large. How do you get large influence on the internet? You get large influence by being on multiple platforms and building your audience across the internet. So whenever you release your content, people watch it everywhere. And Joe Rogan has benefited insanely from the YouTube algorithm in particular. And Perrin, while I'm talking about this, do you mind just social blading Joe Rogan, his two channels, the powerful JRE channel? We were joking about Social Blade. People still use Social Blade. It's funny. It's an old platform. But anyway, I think he's benefited massively from YouTube's algorithm in particular. And if you go to the monthly stats, we could actually see what he's getting each month in terms of his monthly viewership if you scroll down. But without YouTube in place, him getting new eyeballs, getting all those millions and millions and millions of new eyeballs, here are the numbers right here. Millions and millions and millions of new eyeballs. And I'd love to see his monthly views on, did you forget how to use Social Blade? There it is. He gets 100. There it is. You passed it. 100 and nope, down. There it is. 112 million views per month, on Social Blade. And those are basically 112 million views that are gone. So basically Joe Rogan is saying, you know what? I don't need 112 million YouTube views per month. Bye-bye. I'm good with that. I don't need 310,000 subscribers per month. Bye. Now, obviously, his inventory of videos on YouTube is going to stay, and he'll be able to get historical views on his old content. But he's basically saying, nah, I don't want the best content algorithm in the history of humanity feeding me over 100 million views and leads per month so that I can benefit from that. Nah, fuck that. I'm going to Spotify. And so he's trading 112 million views per month for $100 million. Is that trade-off worth it? I think that when you decide, you know what, I'm going to move away from having one of the most successful YouTube channels for anything else other than that, you're being extremely short-sighted. Now, Joe Rogan, look, if you're listening right now, your team's listening right now, look, you got 100 million reasons to be short-sighted, and I'm cool with that. But at the end of the day, he's walking away from a massive audience that as soon as he stops uploading on that channel, that audience is going to decline, and his influence is going to be literally decimated because he is leaving behind this insanely engaged channel. But wait, there's more. One more thing. So he has released information about his show where he's able to prove through YouTube analytics that people on average, by the millions, watch his episodes on YouTube in particular for hours. So if there's a 2 to 3 hour long episode, Joe Rogan viewers will watch all 3 hours on YouTube. And you know what he's saying? Fuck it, I don't need that. Are you crazy? Like, you have 100 million people that want to chug hours of your content straight. And he's just saying, you know what? That influence I currently have, I'm cool exchanging that for money and then having the influence go away. I think the influence goes away. So he's built his influence on YouTube, the platform. And as soon as he divorces himself from YouTube, the platform, what other platform is going to give him this level of influence? The answer is there is no platform out there that can provide that. Not Spotify. And so he's taken that influence bar, he's dropping it down from a 10 out of 10 down to like a 2 out of 10, and he's bringing his money bar up from like a 5 out of 10 to like an 8 out of 10. So he's going from being insanely rich to preposterously rich. And so I guess the insanely rich to preposterously rich jump is more important than having massive influence on the internet. For me, that seems like a silly trade-off, but who knows? Would I say no to $100 million? No.
Yeah, well, I think this is one of the big things that we can look at. First of all, he's obviously going to use, and you can just going through the comments on his pages, you can see that he's going to lose a lot of viewers that are just not going to go over to Spotify. They just don't want to. But he's still popular enough where he's going to take a big chunk with him over there. But we also need to look at where Joe Rogan started from the beginning. Like his first few episodes were only getting about 300 views, and that comes with relevance. He knows what he's doing. He has a team around him that knows exactly what they're doing, how to grow a podcast. Maybe that's just on YouTube. We're going to see. But Joe Rogan's so relevant. This is kind of what I said in the chat we had yesterday, AWOL. He is so relevant. Let's look at this. He's the voice of UFC. He is one of the top 5 touring comedians, both paid and tickets sold in the United States right now, maybe around the world. I don't know, but in the US, he's top 5. So he's going to stay relevant, not to mention the news media. Literally, if you I go through my RSS feed, and every time there's an episode, there's at least 2 or 3 articles about something that Joe Rogan said on those episodes. And they're obviously doing that because they get clicks. I don't think that's going to go away. So he is relevant enough to where after there is this initial decline of people that don't follow him over from YouTube to Spotify, that he's still going to be able to grow drastically on there. He's probably never going to reach YouTube numbers where they are now, but I don't think he even really cares about that because he supposedly has, and I don't know if this is true, about double the amount of actual subscribers on these other audio platforms than what he does on YouTube. So I think his biggest challenge is going to take the audio only listeners and take them from these platforms over to Spotify. I think that's going to be his biggest challenge. These people who are, like you said, that are watching for 3 hours, they're watching the entire interview that he does, every interview that he posts. Like at that point, that's almost, and I really hate using this word, but it's almost like an addiction. They're not going to, those people aren't going to stop watching him just because he's switching platforms, especially because Spotify's free. All they have to do is pop up in Spotify, and there it is. It's essentially the same thing as YouTube. So no, I think initially he's going to lose some influence over this, but he's so relevant in everything that he does right now that he's going to grow. He's going to grow on Spotify, and he's going to make it just fine. But he's also, one of the reasons that he's doing this is because he's also moving to Texas, and there are talks, and this has been talks for a while, that he's wanting to open up his own comedy club and stuff in Austin. So that 100 million will go towards that. This podcast isn't even his number one venture. His comedy is his number one venture. And he's talked about that several times. So getting $100 million contract to go over to Spotify exclusively, I don't think he really cares that much about losing his YouTube audience.
Yeah, just to give you guys some perspective on, so thank you for sharing that. But I understand why he's doing this, but at the end of the day, Spotify is a tiny speck in comparison to YouTube. Spotify's monthly active users is 286 million. That is nothing compared to YouTube. YouTube has 2 billion. So, you're talking about the total potential audience you could reach on Spotify versus YouTube. It's nothing, sauce. So, I mean, he's literally decimating to reduce down to 1/10 of his potential reach by just going exclusive on Spotify. That's a terrible mistake, in my opinion. And his YouTube channel is just growing so rapidly. Now, obviously, he will potentially be able to do the Clips channel and be able to reach people there. That's cool. But at the end of the day, these PR outlets and these press outlets, they want to cover something that's popular, right? And going to a essentially niche platform like Spotify, a small niche platform like Spotify, to put your content on exclusively makes you a lot less coverable by the media. The media wants to cover trending YouTube videos. They want to cover trending topics that are big and getting millions of views. And if something on Spotify, it's not going to get millions of views because it's on Spotify. It's a tiny niche platform. It's like if somebody went from, having a YouTube channel that's getting 100 and something million views per month and then going to Twitch. Twitch has a tiny audience in comparison to YouTube. They would literally be decimating their audience as a result. So these PR outlets, I mean, at first they will cover Joe Rogan moving over there, but I think over time they'll stop covering Joe Rogan as much because he's on Spotify, because what he's talking about on Spotify is way less relevant now because it's on Spotify. This isn't trending on the internet anymore. Spotify is a closed off platform where you can't really discover content there very easily. Their web interface sucks. You have to kind of have the app to actually interface with it properly. But YouTube is ubiquitous. 2 billion human beings are on there. So I don't think he's going to get the press coverage. I don't think he's going to get the PR. He's going to get it for the first 3 to 6 months. And then he's just going to kind of fade away in terms of his relevance in comparison to today. Will he still be wildly popular and famous? Yes. Will he still be very successful and very rich? Yes. Will his reach and will the number of news stories, when we search for him on Google Trends, will that number go down by at least 50%? Yes. So we will be measuring that in a future episode, and we're going to take a look at it. But I predict, let's say that Joe Rogan's popularity is at a 100, if you will, today. I think by the time, about 1 year from now being on Spotify, it'll go down to about a 50. In 2 years on Spotify, it'll go below 20. So he'll lose about 80% of his relevance over the next 2 years on Spotify. I'm calling it right now.
I think that's way too drastic because the PR outlets that are covering him now are also covering him. 75% of what they're covering about him is based on what he's doing in UFC or what he's doing as a comedian. He's still relevant in other areas, and I think that will help spread to the podcast. But I agree in a sense that I think his numbers are going to drastically take a dip, especially within the first couple of years. But as far as completely falling off the relevancy train, I think he's too big. I think he's too big in not only podcasting, but take everything else that he does. I think that's too much. I just think it's too much for him to just completely lose 80% of his popularity. Some of it's going to go down, but we also have to take into consideration what guests he's bringing on. I mean, he's bringing on these massive guests like Elon Musk. He's now had on his podcast twice. If we all know how that episode went, he was smoking weed. So if you hear that Joe Rogan has Elon Musk on, they're smoking weed or something like that, it's still going to get an insane amount of views. People are still going to go over to Spotify and watch it. It's still relevant. And something like that is still, it doesn't matter if it's getting a 10th the amount of views as what it did on YouTube, that's a real possibility that it could only get that, if not even lower. It's still, because these are such massive figures that he's having on his podcast, it's still going to get the coverage. So I think 80% is too much. I would say after about a year, and I'd say about 20, I'd say 20%. I'd say 20%. I wouldn't go 80.
So you said go over to Spotify to watch. Like, it's going to be audio now, right? Am I missing something?
They're going to do video.
Okay.
Spotify video.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. I wasn't sure there because if he was cutting video, then yeah, I would agree with you, AWOL, that this would be a terrible, terrible move because video, like you can't go listen to Elon Musk smoking weed on the show. That doesn't give you anything. No. So anyway, that's beside the point because there will be video. You know, obviously this is a move by Spotify to pull more users to their platform. I look at it in kind of the similar way that Mixer you tried to get Ninja to pull users from Twitch over to their platform. Mm-hmm. And how well did that work out? And we talk about this in a lot of past episodes. Like, users don't like to leave the platform that they're on, consuming the content they're on, to go permanently adopt another platform. It's really tough to convince users to go do that. So I would expect about 25 to 30% of Joe Rogan's audience initially will move over to Spotify, but that will filter down to a lower percentage over time. He's not going to get more than that. It's never more than that. Anytime any of these
It never has been, ever. Nobody's ever able to convert more than 20% of their audience over to another platform. It doesn't matter how good it is.
Exactly. And we know this because we've seen this happen time and time and time and time again. Yet platforms still try to do this, and they must know this to some point. And they're thinking, hey, 100 million is still worth at least 30% of Joe Rogan's audience. I guess they think that's worth it. I don't think that's worth it for Spotify at all. I think they're actually getting a pretty shit deal here, even though they're the ones making it. Because they're not going to get nearly the listenership or viewership that they think that they're going to get. And I don't know. It just doesn't seem like that great of an idea from Spotify's perspective. That's way too much money for too small of an audience. Every platform always thinks they're going to get so much more from this, and they never do. It's like they don't watch the other players in the market trying to do this thing, and every time it just fails. I mean, just look at all the other cases.
100% failure rate on every time a platform. To your point, Perrin, I'm backing you up here. I'm like, watching you preach. 100% failure rate whenever a platform tries to buy somebody exclusively. Just, it never works out. It never helps them. It's never worth the money, and they never renew.
the users don't like to change their behavior. So if they were consuming a Joe Rogan Experience on YouTube, that's the only place that they're going to experience it. If suddenly it's not there anymore, they will just go find something else on YouTube, not follow the show over to Spotify. And yeah, again, 25 to 30% will, but most will not. Most will just go find some other content to fill the vacuum. Because the thing is, there's endless amounts of content to fill that vacuum. There's so much more content creators that to choose from than just the Joe Rogan Experience. Plus, he's been more volatile in the news lately. So I think he has been more hit or miss with his audience. This is a good time to drop him for something else, especially since he's abandoning the platform. And it's kind of like he's abandoning his fans on YouTube. And I imagine that they feel that way.
I don't know necessarily. I think if people feel abandoned over a $100 million contract that they themselves would have taken.
True. That's true.
They don't think about it that way.
Not wrong.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. They don't look at it like that at all. They look at it because they love their platform. But to go to your point, and number one, I agree that initially, maybe for even a year to 3 years, maybe even 4 years, the numbers are obviously going to be decimated compared to what they were on YouTube. But let's take a look at what Spotify's bigger plan is. Sure, that we see that these exclusivity contracts don't necessarily work in gaming, where you have people like Ninja and Shroud and Dr. Disrespect, who are all just gaming. The thing that gives Spotify a chance, and I see what they're doing here, is they're bringing in people with podcasts that are relevant in more than one area. Like we talked about, Joe Rogan, top 5 comedian touring right now, voice of the UFC. Michelle Obama, one of the most popular first ladies in the history of the United States, has exclusive podcast on there.
But she didn't have to give up anything else. She didn't have to give up her YouTube channel, and she didn't have to give up a currently successful mega ultra hit piece of show in order to do that. She just is going to start from scratch there. So Michelle Obama, thumbs up on that deal. You made a good deal.
She did. But also I'm looking at how the platform itself, what are they doing to actually grow? And they're bringing in these names like Michelle Obama, people that are relevant elsewhere, where their names are going to consistently be in the news no matter what they're doing. And that's ultimately going to lead to more traffic for Spotify. Now, I agree. I think the most interesting thing about all this is, one, how does Spotify actually lay out the content? So we know that they're bringing over like every episode that he's done. I think Joe Rogan said in an interview or something where one of the reasons he did it is because of how Spotify has organized his content and how it's going to be laid out and supposed to be easily digestible. But
so they're bringing back all of his old. Sorry to interrupt. They're bringing back all of his old episodes, and
everything he's done is episode that he's done is going to be on Spotify, and it's going to be organized not necessarily by number, but they're going to have it in like 15 different categories, cross categorization. So I mean, my biggest thing is going to be, what is Spotify doing itself outside of Joe Rogan, outside of Michelle Obama? What is their plan to consistently bring new users to the platform outside of those people? And I think that's what ultimately in 5 to 10 years down the road will decide the fate. And when we look back at this and say, okay, was that a successful move to, drop YouTube and go over, or was it not? I think ultimately this is going to depend on Spotify's strategy.
I hear you. They're going to manually curate his content. Look, I've been a media executive in all the meetings with all the platforms for years, and they're going to manually curate his content so viewers watch it. Guess what? When human beings make playlists and they curate content and they lay out pages to get people to watch stuff and they add categories, people don't use it. That's why algorithms are more effective. That's why YouTube's algorithm is more powerful than all of the other platforms, is because machines are better at suggesting content to people than human beings are. That's why YouTube is going to remove playlists altogether. Official series playlists are going away. That's why YouTube removes shows. That's why as platforms' algorithms get better and better, they remove all ways for human beings to tell other human beings what to watch. And then they just let people basically just decide with their own decisions and with their own clicks. So Spotify saying, we're going to curate your content and we're going to categorize it, that's idiotic. YouTube is discovering, for Joe Rogan, 112 million views for him every single month. Spotify isn't even going to be able to come close to that. Spotify adding 15 categories is not going to add 112 million views to Joe Rogan on Spotify. So I just think, and I understand what you're saying. He probably likes that. And a lot of people are frustrated with YouTube in particular because the algorithm has completely taken control of their content and they want to feel like they have control and they want something fresh. And they don't also, I know Joe Rogan doesn't want to be at the mercy of the YouTube algorithm talking about controversial topics. And he loves to talk controversial topics and his content can get nerfed or he could be at risk for doing so. And on Spotify, he can just say whatever kind of crazy stuff he wants. I hear you. But Spotify doesn't have a chance to be able to generate the viewership and to be able to feed people the content they want like YouTube can. So he's kind of like, right now he's driving the Ferrari of content platforms. And he says, you know what? That Honda Civic over there would look really cool if they put a spoiler on it for me. Cool. I'm going to go drive the Honda Civic.
I mean, maybe just in his career, he knows this and he's ready to kind of cash out on this part of it and really focus on like kind of what Ross is saying, his like comedy stuff. And like make this, maybe he doesn't care about the relevancy from the YouTube platform. Maybe he's willing to give it up for the 100 mil right now so he can put that into the other stuff that he really wants to focus on. That seems to be like what his line of thinking is currently, because I mean, outside of it being really tough to turn down a 100 million deal, losing all of your relevance on YouTube, I mean, I imagine he has some idea of what he's giving up. Well, we would have to, right? After doing so many years on YouTube, you have to know what you're giving up.
Yeah, 100%. He knows exactly what he's giving up at this point. We keep saying, but YouTube relevance doesn't necessarily mean overall relevance. That's my biggest argument for him actually succeeding over there. Now, by succeeding, obviously, I'm not talking about the number of views or listeners, because we know that's going to drop steadily, and that will probably never catch back up to where it is currently right now at its plateau. But I think he is just relevant enough outside of podcasting, outside of YouTube, where he's still gonna be successful at funneling people in. It's a long-term strategy, and it's gonna take a long time for it to grow to even get in the relevant anywhere near what the numbers are now. But for $100 million, I mean, I get it. I 100% get it, especially when you are so relevant and you know that this isn't gonna go away.
Ross, I love you, buddy. I'm glad we could argue about this today. Look, at the end of the day, now that we're at the end of the episode, Joe Rogan, I'm really happy for you that you made $100 million. And you know what?
Right.
For $100 million, who cares about your YouTube channel?
I want to. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. We're just arguing about the logistics of it. But
yeah, I mean,
like, we're gonna say no to that.
I think long term, it hurts Joe Rogan's influence to do this, but it certainly helps his bank account, and he's still going to be insanely influential. So like, whatever, he's gonna be all right. Ross, take us out of here, buddy.
That was your daily drop. Full replays on YouTube. If you missed any hot tips or anything, well, we didn't even give any hot tips this show. Subscribe to the audio version. We're on iTunes, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. We're looking at you, Spotify. Where's our $100 million contract?
For real.
Yeah, maybe in a couple months they'll come to us. Anyway, we'll be back tomorrow. Happy creating.
Adios, everybody. And don't forget, if you want to restream and not be exclusive on Spotify, we are currently live on Twitch, DLive, Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope using Restream.io. Link in our bio and our description to get $10 off your first month. And you can use code DROP25, DROP25, no space, DROP25, no space to get 25% off. Adios, amigos. Joe, thanks for watching, man.